Hello everyone, especially to my classmates in MBA 113A, Law of Business Environment. Under our professors, Judge Cappadocia and his son, Attorney Cappadocia. I am Maria Virginit A. Maata and I was assigned to report about Intellectual Property Code or RA 8293. Copyrights, related conventions, GATT, and World Trade Organization. Keep on watching and have a nice day. Republic Act Number 8293. It is an act prescribing the Intellectual Property Code and establishing the Intellectual Property Office, providing for its powers and functions, and for other purposes, otherwise known as the Intellectual Property Code of the Philippines. The use of intellectual property bears a social function. So, what is the intellectual property law? So, it deals with laws to protect and enforce rights of the creators and owners of inventions, writing, music, designs, and other works known as the intellectual property. So there are 4 types of intellectual properties. So first is copyrights, second, patents, third, trademarks, and the fourth is trade secrets. So if you are a business owner, you should familiarize yourself with the 4 types of intellectual property, or otherwise known as IP. So this time around, we'll focus on what is a copyright. So, copyrights protect original artistic works that includes things like photos, books, movies, songs, paintings, software code, and architecture. So, copyrights give their owner the exclusive right to reproduce and profit of the underlying work. The underlying principle is simple. If you can create something original, you get to choose what to do with it. So, copyrights are automatic at the time of creation, but you can register with the government to get stronger protections. According to Tonya Evans, she is an Associate Dean of Academic Affairs and Professor of Law at the University of New Hampshire. Creators are not required to register their original creative work before copyright exists because rights exist automatically when the work is fixed in some tangible form. But creators should register it for further protection. So, I know all of us were already familiar of what copyright means or about the copyright law. So, for example, as we open books to read, so copyright is always present. So, we can see that at the beginning of the pages of a book. Then second, when we listen to music or videos, it has copyright. So I think copyright is a part of all business activities, or it is a part of our daily life. So just want to relate it in my personal experience. So as a teacher, so in school, we have a lots of books and modules. So every book or module has its own copyright or has an individual author. So we cannot reproduce it or sold. We cannot reproduce it or copy it for production or for I want to relate the copyright in my profession. So as a teacher in school, there are lots of books and modules that we use. So all books and modules in school has its own copyrights. So we can produce I want to relate the copyright in my profession. So as a teacher in school, there are lots of books and modules that we use. So all books and modules in school has its own copyrights. So we can produce or photocopy it for students only. So we have no rights to reproduce or to sell it for other purposes outside the school premises. So, there are two primary international copyright agreements. So the first is Buenos Aires Convention and the second one is Berne Convention. So they are international treaties which provide protection automatically for all creative works as long as they are fixed in a medium. So, under the Buenos Aires Convention, it is an international copyright treaty signed in Buenos Aires, Argentina on August 11, 1910, providing mutual recognition of copyrights where the work carries a notice containing a statement of preservation of rights. And the second one is the Berne Convention. It is also an international copyright protection of literary and artistic works. So it was first accepted in Berne, Switzerland in 1886. So now let's proceed to GATT, or what is GATT? So the General Agreement of Tariffs and Trade. So that GATT stands for. It covers international trade in goods. The workings of the GATT agreement are the responsibility of the Council for Trade in Goods, or the Goods Council, which is made up of representatives from all World Trade Organization member countries. So GATT, it was signed by 23 nations at the Palace des Nations in Geneva on October 30, 1947. So, and also, let's proceed to what is WTO. So, WTO, or World Trade Organization, was founded in January 1, 1995 as a successor to GATT. So it is an international organization that deals with the rules of trade between countries. So the WTO's agreement on trade-related aspects of intellectual property rights, or TRIPS, negotiated during the 1986 to 1994 Uruguay round. So it is introduced the intellectual property rules into the multilateral trading system for the first time. We can say that the TRIPS agreement covers the 5 broad areas. So first is how general provisions and basic principles of the multilateral trading system apply to international intellectual property. Then, second is what the minimum standards of protection are for intellectual property rights that members should provide. Then the third one is which procedures members should provide for the enforcement of those rights in their own territories. And the fourth one, how to settle disputes on intellectual property between members of the WTO. And the last one is special transitional arrangements for the implementation of TRIPS provision. So we can say that TRIPS agreement is very important, especially in the field of business or in a business world, because the TRIPS agreement ensures that computer programs will be protected as literary works under the Berne Convention and outlines how databases must be protected under copyright. And also, it expands international copyright rules to cover rental rights. And authors of computer programs and producers of sound recordings must have the right to prohibit the commercial rental of their works to the public. So, as a similar exclusive right applies to films where commercial rental has led to widespread copying, affecting copyright owners' potential earnings from their films. And also, it says performers must also have the right to prevent unauthorized recording, so reproduction and broadcast of live performances for no less than 50 years. So producers of sound recordings must have the right to prevent the unauthorized reproduction of recordings for a period of 50 years. So this copyright is very important, especially when we say or we focus in business world, because we cannot make or produce any related works without the proper authority or without the authorization of the owner. So there are here is the following sanctions if we prohibit or if we as a conclusion, so this Intellectual Property Code or Republic Act 8293 is very important or significant in all aspects of our economy. So most especially in business-related activities or in the world of business. Because if we don't follow this law, so it has legal sanctions. So first is under Philippine law, copyright infringement is punishable by the following: imprisonment of between 1 to 3 years and a fine of between 50,000 to 150,000 pesos for the first offense. Then imprisonment of 3 years and 1 day to 6 years plus a fine of between 150,000 to 500,000 pesos for the second offense. Thank you for watching my report. I hope you learned something about Republic Act 8293, which is all about Intellectual Property Code. Thank you and God bless.